If you ask an AI agent to build you a pricing system, it will happily do so. The problem is that it may build you exactly what you asked for, and in the process destroy massive amounts of value in the process. I'm seeing this happen across publishers, retail media networks, and ad tech companies alike. And before I get accused of being a Luddite, let me be clear. There are lots of places where I think it is appropriate to be using AI and using it aggressively. It can be useful in answering questions about pricing policies in your internal teams. It can be useful in a deal desk as part of the criteria. And if the rules are clear, then AI can clearly help people get faster and more consistent answers. The same is also true for deal approvals. If you have explicit thresholds around the deal size and the discounts, then there is potentially no reason for a person to have to approve every transaction. And furthermore, AI is already making a huge difference in analytics, whether it be creating dashboards faster to letting business users run queries directly on data that would otherwise be difficult to create. There is one caveat on this, and that is that bad data definitions will still produce bad or inconsistent answers. But notice what all of these examples have in common. The business has already defined the rules. AI is executing them, it is not inventing them. And the danger starts to occur when we cross that line. And there are three areas in particular that I think you need to be particularly careful of. The first area where I would urge you to be extremely careful is using AI to set prices relative to the market or relative to your competitors. We understand what the traditional way of price collusion was. It was when executives from one company would get together with executives from another, agree on how they would change prices for their industry, and manipulate the market. And that is a problem. It's a very clear problem. But AI introduces a much less obvious version of the same risk. And that is what happens when pricing agents are continually monitoring competitors' prices, reacting to each other's pricing decisions, or potentially communicating with other agents. In those situations, you never have two executives sitting in the same room agreeing on price, but you may end up with automated systems producing effectively exactly the same outcome. And this is particularly dangerous because the people running those systems may not fully understand how the pricing decisions are being made. And so this is one of those areas that is still very much gray, but I would simply say do not let the agent optimize the price. You need to be very clear about what competitive information is being used in the systems, what decisions it can take, and what human oversight is required, because this is an area where you don't want to discover the boundaries by becoming the test case. The second area where I would urge anyone to be very cautious is in trying to use AI for pricing and packaging when real innovation is needed, especially when traditional norms need to be challenged. One example that springs to mind is Uber and Lyft, who both have advertising businesses. And when they started running their applications, they did something that digital publishers don't usually do or don't have access to. They had ownership of the entire ride experience. And this created the opportunity to price advertising in a completely different way. Instead of selling impressions, they could sell the ride itself. And this resulted in a new term in the industry, a CPR, a cost per ride. And we hadn't really seen that model before in digital advertising. The closest analogy might be a full page takeover on the web, where an advertiser effectively owns the whole page for a period of time. But that isn't quite the same thing. The important point is that the CPR idea didn't come from asking how should we price impressions better. It came from asking a more fundamental question, which is what is it that we actually have the ability to sell? And it's this type of reframing that I would be cautious about using AI for. AI is very good at looking at across existing models, finding successful analogs, and adapting them. If you show it CPMs, sponsorships, takeovers, and audience packages, it can probably suggest some very sensible variations. But the biggest innovations often come from stepping outside the categories that already exist. And I'm going to broaden the second category beyond pricing and to advertising product innovation in general. I've been doing this a really long time and I'm still amazed by the different formats, bundles, skins, sponsorship, and commercial models that publishers and ad tech companies invent, and usually invent because it is an appropriate solution for their business. A lot of these ideas come from something unusual about the asset or the audience or the user experience or the business itself. And that is the risk with handing innovation over to AI too early. It may give you a better version of something that already exists when the real opportunity is to invent something fundamentally different. And third, and I think most important, which is why I've set the space for it, is the trap of asking AI to design your pricing before you've actually decided what you're trying to achieve. I've run into examples where companies have used AI to create pricing and packaging frameworks, and AI can absolutely help with that. But before you ask it to build the solution, you need to step back and answer the most basic question yourself. What is my objective function? Or in English, what does success actually look like? In the world of ad tech, the objective might be higher prices, or it might be higher margins, and those are not necessarily the same thing. You could increase CPMs and reduce revenue if your demand falls off fast enough. You could maximize the margin percentage while leaving profitable revenue on the table. Or the objective could be something completely different. Maybe you want packages that are easier for customers to understand and easier for sales to sell. Or maybe you want prices that are more aligned to market expectations. Maybe you want to reduce discounting. Maybe you want customers to adopt a new product or migrate away from an old one. All of these scenarios that I've laid out, and I think I've given you like 6, can lead to potentially very different pricing architectures. And this is where AI can become dangerous. Not because it gives you bad answers, but because it can give you a good answer to the wrong question. If you tell an AI pricing agent, give me an optimized pricing architecture, it will give you one. It may even look incredibly sophisticated, but optimizing for what? That decision still belongs with the business. And before you ask AI to optimize your pricing, you need to be explicit about the objective, the trade-offs that you are willing to make, and the constraints that the system has to operate within. Otherwise, you might end up automating your way to a very efficient outcome that you actually never wanted. So the takeaway is not that AI does not belong in pricing, quite the opposite. Use it aggressively when the rules are clear, the data is well defined, and the business has already decided what good looks like. But be much more careful when you are asking AI to make decisions that actually define your pricing strategy. Like, what are we selling? What are we optimizing for? What constraints do we need to respect? These are management decisions because AI can execute a pricing strategy incredibly well. It can also execute the wrong pricing strategy incredibly efficiently, and that is a trap that you want to avoid. If you are seeing examples where AI is genuinely improving pricing, or where companies are handing over the decisions that they probably shouldn't, I would love to hear about them in the comments. And if you want more practical ideas on pricing, yield, and monetization in digital advertising, subscribe to my channel. I am James Deaker. I am the Yield Doctor. Thanks for joining.